أعوذ أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وصلى الله على رسول الله وعلى آل بيت رسول الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. So inshallah we are going to continue with the session with Surat Al-Hujurat. We were talking about the sketch of the surah, how the surah sketches like the sketch of the noble world. Also we talked about where the surah was revealed. We said like it was revealed in Medina because at that time the believers were ready to accept all of this moral teachings. Where in Mecca, all the teaching was more focused on the aqidah, the tawheed, because they were not ready yet at that time. So we want to talk today about the relation with the relation of Surat Al-Hujurat with the previous surahs. So we started about this last time. Inshallah, we're going to continue this session. I don't know if you remember from previous Quran sessions that always there is a relation between the surahs. So each surah, as if it is the continuation of the other surah. The topics of the surahs, they fit together. They make one thread, let's say. They got one thread that makes that one complete necklace, let's say. So the surahs from the beginning of the Quran to the end of the Quran, they are planned in a way where each surah is the continuation of the other surah. So talking about Surat Al-Hujurat, because it is the surahs of ethics. So what is the relation with the previous surah, with Surat Al-Fatih? So the surah which is someone, can you okay, okay, Zahra, inshallah. So the relation with Surat Al-Fatih, what is the relation with Surat Al-Fatih? So Surat Al-Fatih talks about the Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and even Surat Muhammad, which is the surah before Surat Al-Fatih. So Surat Muhammad talks about the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and his characteristics, and then comes Surat Al-Fatih, talks about the loyalty that Muslims should have to the Prophet. Like we should honor the Prophet, dignify him, and strengthen and respect with higher standards of respect. And in this surah, Surah Al-Fatih, also it is talking about some of the victories that happened on a military scale, let's say, and we're going to discuss that. So the end of Surah Al-Fatih says God has promised all those among them who believe and do good, righteous deeds, forgiveness, منهم مغفرة وأجرا عظيما. And then the beginning of Surah Al-Hujurat, it says, indeed, those who lower their voices in the presence of Allah, they are the one, in the presence of Rasulullah, they are the ones whose hearts Allah has tested for being God conscious. For them, we will have forgiveness and a great reward. So the end of Surah Al-Fatih is talking about forgiveness and a great reward, and the beginning of Surah Al-Hujurat is talking about forgiveness and great reward. So this is a kind of similarity between these two surahs. Also, the end of Surah Al-Fatih is saying that, okay, we have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised those who believe and do right is that they have this reward. And then the beginning of Surah Al-Hujurat, it says, O people who believe, do not advance ahead of Allah and His noble messenger. Don't put yourself before Allah and His messenger. So as if, the end of Surah Al-Hujurat, there's a question there, like whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised to give this forgiveness and tremendous reward. Then the answer comes in Surah Al-Hujurat that this forgiveness and tremendous reward is those al-mu'minun, You know, that's why the Surah Al-Hujurat starts with, oh, people who believe. Ya أيها الذين آمنوا. So who are those who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised them? Those who don't advance, you know, ahead of Allah and His noble messenger. So as if the end of Surah Al-Fatiha is saying that there is a tremendous reward for those who believe. But whom are those who believe? Now, Surah Al-Hujurat give us the answer. That those who really believe, not anyone's, those who really believe are the ones who they don't advance, you know, ahead of Allah and His messenger. So those who believe now, as if these first ayat of Surah Al-Hujurat is saying that those who don't advance, those are the people, are the mu'minun who have the total submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They don't put themselves before Allah. They don't put their opinions before Allah and His messengers and His messenger. So which means there are type of mu'minun who have this total submission for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His messenger and His orders. So they don't put themselves before Allah and His messenger. So as if, you know, the end of Surah Al-Hujurat is saying that those people who are going to get this forgiveness and tremendous reward are those who have not only just who believe, but who have those total submission. So also, Surah Al-Fatih talked about, which is the surah just previous of Surah Al-Hujurat, talked about the outside victories, let's say, with enemies. So at that time, Surah Al-Fatih, there was a kind of agreement that was made between the Prophet and the people who were mushrikun, polytheistic people who used to worship the idols in Mecca. So at that time, the Prophet had a dream that he is going to go from Medina to Mecca and he will enter Mecca in a way that the mushrikun, they are going to be defeated. So, and this what happened later, that they went to Mecca, and without any kind of battle or any kind of military action, the Prophet was able to make an agreement with those people, and then he was able to enter Mecca after that. So that agreement was considered a kind of victory, and not a military victory, but a kind of, like, let's say, exterior victory, outside a victory without using, the military. Let's say the military things. So that agreement by itself was considered a kind of victory. That's why the Surah Al-Fath starts with Inna fatahna laka fathan mubina, like a huge victory was made, you know, and it was not something military action or something like that, but there was a kind of victory made among the enemies. So Surah Al-Hujurat, because we said there's a relation between Surah Al-Fatiha and Surah Al-Hujurat. Surah Al-Hujurat, on the other hand, talks about another type of victory that we should, as a mu'minun, think of, and we should really take care of. So we have let's say, outside victory with the enemies, and we have another type of victory or another type of battle that we should face with ourselves. And this is the interior victory among the self. So now, as if we have two surahs, Surah Al-Fatih is talking about the victories with the enemies outside the self. And then we have a surah, which is after Surah Al-Fatih, Surah Al-Hujurat, talks about the interior victory, which is more important than the outside victory, and which is the victory among the self. As if the Surah Al-Hujurat is saying, well, the victories that you had, which are outside with your enemies, they are not enough. You should focus now, because you are believers, you made these victories outside. You should focus now on those interior victories within the self itself. So this is one of the important relations between Surah Al-Fatiha and Hujurat. One is talking about the outside victories with the enemies, and then the Surah Al-Hujurat says, no, it's not enough. Those victories outside, whether they are military or kind of agreements with the enemies, they are not enough. You have to focus on your inner growth you have to focus on the battle with the self, and you should have this victory from inside. And that's why the surah comes to talk about all of these morals and talks about all of these ethics, that you should do this and this and this and this. Why? Because this is what you need. Whatever is in this surah is whatever we need in order to achieve this inner victory, in order to achieve this victory in the battle with the self. Because every one of us should have a battle with his self. I'm not talking about like we should not love ourselves, or no, it's this is the way we have been designed. The human being has been designed with a nafs, and this nafs always have temptations, and it has not only temptations, it's going to focus many trials, and there's a huge temptations out there, and there is an enemy, which is the shaitan, and which is the nafs. They are going to manipulate us in order to look forward, or run after these temptations. So this nafs is designed this way. Is the nafs that we have is designed in a way that either this nafs could reach a higher level of perfection, that it could be better than angels, or it could reach a very low level of humiliation to be less than animals. So what happens in this battle with the self that everyone has to go through is that it's a continuous battle on daily basis with those enemies, the forces within the self, in order to take the self into the perfection, into this better, let's say, better versions of ourselves. And as we know that this self has soldiers, as the Sayyid Imam talks about this, he says that this everyone's self, it has a soldiers, and part of the self has a angelic soldiers, and the other soldiers are the soldiers of the shaitan. And whatever, and these two soldiers, they fight together all the time. Where they are fighting in the nafs. So once you have something you are tempted to do, or it's haram, it's forbidden, and you want to do, it's a ghiba, this nafs likes to do these kind of things. So here, these two soldiers, the angelic ones and the shaitanic ones, they struggle in this battle together. If you are trained, and if your angelic soldiers are more trained, this comes by training and by practicing and by forbidding haram as much as you can. If this happens, then what happens is that those angelic forces, they are going to take, they are going to take off. They are going to win, one battle after another. But if you are on the side where you just follow those temptations all the time, what happens is that these shaitanic forces, they are going to take over, So what happens with time is that we are going to reach a stage where we are humiliated less than animals. So this nafs has this kind of capacity. Either the angelic forces can take over, or the shaitanic forces can take over. So that's why in this nafs that we have, or ourself, when I say nafs, I mean the self, we always have this continuous battle between these two forces. We are tempted to do something, and then we say, no, it's haram, it's forbidden. So the more we train ourselves not to do haram and to obey those commands, the more those angelic forces will take through time. So this Surat Al-Hujurat is what we need in order to apply these morals and ethics. We want to know what is our program, how do we want to live our lives with the morals that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants. So this Surah Al-Hujurat says all of these things about these things. So these surahs, both of them, they are resolving the internal and the external conflicts. So we have an external conflicts outside, and we have internal conflicts. If someone is not able to resolve his internal conflicts, if someone is not able to overcome his personal self problems, to take over his self, to be the better version of himself, the angelic forces to take over the shaitanic forces. If this self battle, is not, let's say, in the hand of the mu'min, if he loses this battle, this internal battle, then for sure he's going to lose the external battle. So we have a lot of enemies outside, right? We have a lot of enemies outside. The shaitan, the huge elite forces that they are manipulating the whole world. We have many, many, many battles, many, many enemies outside. If we are not able to overcome the enemies inside, the shaitanic forces inside us, then all of the external conflicts outside, the social problem outside, the family problems outside that we have, the international problems that we have, they are not going to be solved. So that's why the surah is telling us, if you want to start solving your problems outside with your social relationships, with your family, with your husbands, with your, you have to start resolving your internal conflicts with your own self. So that's why we have these two surahs. One is talking about the external, but saying it's not enough. If you want to reach that stage, you have to move to the self, to battling, the continuous battle with the self, and you have to overcome these shaitanic forces in order to reach that victory. Why? Because all of the diseases in the society outside that we see, it starts from the internal diseases. You know, why people hate each other outside? Because, it starts with an internal disease, that probably I love to gossip. I love to spread gossips. I don't say good words. So that's where it started, from me, from the self. So that's why before we head outside to deal with all of those issues that we have with the social relationships, families, society, we have to start treating and dealing the wounds inside us. We have to go deep inside, practice self-discipline as much as we can, do self-knowledge, look inside, do what we can do on the inner level, always combat those shaitanic forces in order for us to win that battle. So the cause of the conflicts outside is always, we have to remember this, is always a conflict within. And once we lack this self-victory on the inside level, that is going to lead us for the to lose the battle outside. You know why now? I know maybe this is a little bit off topic. It's not off topic, but you know why now our Islamic Arab world is defeated, although we have Islam, because we lost the victory over the self. We became someone. We became people, believers, whom they can be manipulated by others. How can all of this, like Muslim Ummah, can be manipulated by others? Because, the West and all of those elites, why? Because ourselves became weak. And this is, of course, has to do with the food that we eat, with the innate fitra that we have masked, with the actions that we do, with our, with our, all of this materialistic life that we are living. So that's why they are able to conquer our land and do all of these things for us, because we are people who are defeated from inside. Once we are defeated from inside, we don't have this self-victory, then it is really easy for others to win or overcome us. So that's why this surah, I know I've made maybe a long introduction about this surah and the purpose, because it's really important when we come to study a surah. We don't want to just study the ayat without knowing the purposes. We have to go deep. So this is really an important surah in building that individual and building that individual that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants, in building that society that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants, in building that human conscience, in building that awareness, and building that conscious. So that's why this surah is intended to guide the people to those noble morals of the in how dealing with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet, and being polite with him in himself, and all doing all of these things. So I don't know if because I promised to make it short. I'm going just to make a small introduction for this. Inshallah, I'm going to continue it later on. So because we said that there is a relation between the Surat Al-Fatiha and Surat Al-Hujurat, one of them is talking about the exterior, let's say, victories, and one of them is talking about the interior victories with the self. This because it is really connected with how humans are made up of. We human beings, we are made up of also like two, let's say two, not versions, but we have these two lives, let's say. We have that exterior, that outward, which are the actions that generate from us, and we have something inward, something interior, which are the morals, which are the characteristics. It's the same as that human being is made up of two words, two lives. One of them is that which is that outward life, which is associated with the body. I have that body. With that body, I generate actions. And we have another inner life, which is the inward life, which is the hidden life, the invisible life. It is like, it's not something that we can sense or touch, like the out, which is the body. That life is his soul, in short, his nafs, his which belongs to the realms of the invisible. So this human being has that outer part, which is his body, and in our bodies we generate actions, and we have that inward part in us which we cannot see, which is like hidden inside, and this represents our soul that holds the morals and the characteristics of that soul. And there's a huge relationship between the outer of us and the inner. There's a huge relationship between the actions that we do and the morals and the characteristics that we have inside. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has designed our bodies in a way that there is a relation between the bodies and the souls. We have a body and we have a soul, and there's a relation between this body and the soul. So what I want to say by this is whatever action we do outside, it tells us so much about our inner, about our morals. So if I want to know what do I hold of good morals inside, I have to look into my actions. So my actions in the outside level tells me a lot about what do I hold inside. And what when I say what is inside, I mean that inside that is going to show off in the day of judgment. And the day of judgment, we are not going to have or in the barzakh, we are not going to have this body. We don't use this body anymore. This body is just for this dunya, for this life. After that, we are going to be, revealed or showed, or we are going to look not in our bodies, but in our inner. So the way we act in this life is really gives me a great information about what are the morals and the characteristics that I have inside. Sometimes in public we act things that we don't, we decorate it because we don't want people to see how bad we are, or we mask things, but still these things are inside. How much we mask them, they are still inside. They are not treated in the inside level. So there is a huge relation between the actions that I do outside and the true morals that I hold inside. When my morals inside and characteristics become more divine, my actions become more divine. And vice versa. When my actions become more divine then my morals and characteristics become more divine. So I'm going to stop it here because I promised it's just a short reminder every time and to keep you in tune for next time. And I'm going to start from here, inshallah, to talk about this relation between out and inner and how to reach that place where our out is the same as our inner. And this is what we want to reach through this surah. We want to be those pure human beings that we have that one face. I mean, we are pure from inside and pure from our outside. وصلى الله على رسول الله وعلى آل بيته رسول الله.